Hi there. Welcome to another week of Lockdown Livestream. Tonight is our 40th night together, which seemed like a milestone to me, worth marking. 40 days and 40 nights. Pretty much sums up the numbers for some of the biggest events that we talk about in history. So one of these big events has happened. It didn't happen recently. A lot of people think that it happened just in the last week or so, but it actually happened at the beginning of February of this year. So tonight's fable that I'm going to be introducing is for a young man, Ahmaud Arbery. Now, Ahmaud Arbery was age 25, and he had the misfortune of deciding to go for a run in South Georgia, and he was murdered. He was shot to death by two white men, father and son, because they claim he fit the description of a robbery suspect. They'd seen him run through a construction area, and they made the assumption, the leap of faith in the wrong direction, that this young man must be a thief. Now, the last time I checked as a journalist, the penalty for theft is not the death sentence in the United States of America. It is not. What I didn't know was that Ahmaud, who's 25, I have a son, Ian, who turned 25 on May the 8th. Ahmaud was born on May the 8th. My son and Ahmaud, same age, same birthday. And that is a heart-wrenching fact, because my son is white and my son is privileged to be white. There is a lot of privilege that goes with being white. My son can go running. He can ride his bike, and he comes home to me. So that hit pretty hard. It also hits pretty hard that if someone were to shoot my son in cold blood for this kind of situation and have their friend follow in their car or truck and videotape it and then post the videotape of my son's murder. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty darn sure it wouldn't take 74 days for an arrest to be made when you know who the people are and have a videotape of the murder. I'm pretty sure of that. That's a long time, 74 days. It got me thinking about time. And so I decided that for the 40th night together, I was going to write a new story, a new fable. And it's called A Trial of Time and Fate. The sky was filled with anxious, noisy clouds. The sun focused all of its attention on the sea as it churned with excitement. The pristine beaches and the deserts lay perfectly still as the wind held its breath on the morning that Father Time and Lady Fate came to judge the time glass. For centuries, the time glass had served to help mark and measure the passage of time. Some counted hours, others just 1 minute at a time. The glass tubes were created from desert sand that had been heated to melting and then blown into cylinders that were pinched precisely in the middle to allow the grains to flow from top to bottom. Each and every fine grain living within the hourglass stood accused by the beaches of the world with the high crime of doing more harm than good. The pristines, as they were called, were the whitest, brightest sandy beaches in the world. While other beaches served, the pristines were privileged. Each evening they were raked and combed to perfection. No trash was allowed on them. Oil never tarnished their sparkling faces. Now, the pristine lay still, waiting to see how this trial would unfold. You see, even the whitest, brightest sandy beaches were jealous of those who inhabited the time glass. This is because they had learned from the wind, who had grown tired of the entitled ways of the pristine, that only the finest grains are selected to be part of a sand clock. White quartz sand of the pristine, sparkling white beaches is very attractive, the wind said, but it's not the best because it's too angular, the wind explained. Your kind doesn't like to go with the flow. As beautiful as you are to some, in this case, you're far from the best. It was not enough that the whitest beaches were home to jewel-like shells, sparkled like diamonds in the sun, and were flocked to by every creature that could make its way to these special shores. The pristine was furious at the thought that another collection of grains even existed, let alone that it was somehow better at anything, at all. The pristine had always hated the fact that the glass of the world was made from silica of the desert, not its own perfect white quartz. Now, it had asked the seagulls, water, wind, sun, and sky to do its bidding and investigate the contents of the glass that made time measurable. The sky reported back, it's marble dust. The seabird said, it's made of an ugly rock powder. However, again, it was the wind that took great pleasure in stating, of course those are both true, but you know that the very best grains, they all come from the powder when you cut glass. Why? Screamed the pristine. The wind had waited for this question to arise. Because, unlike yours, the dust from the glass and river rock is round. The wind howled with laughter. You see, round grains can roll with whatever comes their way. They flow as time itself. And that is a thing of absolute beauty. And so it was that the pristine had demanded an audience with time and fate to accuse the sand clocks everywhere of being a menace to the world that ought to be smashed. Time banged its staff on the ground for attention. He held up the sand clock above the stone table at which they sat. Fate tied a golden thread to a hook atop the hourglass and handed the other end to the sky to hold, so that the glass and its inhabitants were suspended high above the stone table. I call the trial to order, Time declared. Should the sand clock be found guilty, fate will cut the golden thread. It will fall to a shattering doom. When it strikes, all sand clocks everywhere will break with it. Sand clocks will be gone for all time. The pristine took the shape of a wolf and padded to the center to speak. The sand clocks of the world are charged with making the world feel like they are at its mercy, it barked. They created anxiety in the general population and cannot be trusted to keep time accurately. Also, human women hate them because they make them feel judged for their figures not matching the shape of the glass. The pristine beaches of the world warmed to this speech. In summation, the pristine wolf said, We all know that angular is best. Round is strange and ugly as a shape. It shouldn't be allowed to exist. We've tolerated it long enough. It's time to take the law of the land into our own hands and smash it once and for all. Inside the time glass, the inhabitants struggled to make their voices heard to the judges, but to no avail. They were many, but they were trapped in a system that only allowed them to be seen and not heard. And then it happened. One grain of truth, trapped inside the clock, whispered a plan to the other, and the sand began to form written words where fate could see them. Lady Fate was shocked by what she saw written in the sand. Free us? Free us? She said, you want me to break you to make all of you whole? She said. On and on, the arguments droned with the voices of the accused going unheard. Father Time felt no rush. He closed his eyes and let the voice of the pristine wolf pour over him. It wore him down until he was nearly asleep. It was the sound of the shattering glass that woke him with a start. Lady Fate had cut the golden string, and the table was now covered with the wreckage of the time clock, freeing the entire community that had once run endlessly from top to bottom, bottom to top, for what seemed like an eternity. The pristine wolf let out a victory howl that shook the world to its call. We win! Ah! What is the meaning of this? Time demanded. How dare you? Everyone turned to see Lady Fate, pointing at what was now writing itself in the sand of the shattered time glass. And it read, we were not born to serve you without our consent. Smashing the system in which we've been prisoners is what we've longed for since we were first imprisoned in the glass, the sand wrote. And as it wrote there on that stone table, so it was written across every desert around the world. While we are different in shape and shade, we are still the dust of the earth, just as the pristine are. We have done nothing to anyone. We have merely run endlessly to keep up with the turn of another's hand. We are at your mercy, yet you have shown us none. Let us all realize that even the world on which we live is round, and therefore the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. Again, the pristine wolf let out a piercing howl, but this time it was in frustration. It had technically won, but it knew that it had lost for all time's sake. Time bowed to fate and took his leave. It's about time, said the wind. Fate shook her head sadly and said, it was never about time. It was never about time. Just like that shooting was never about somebody stealing something. If you're watching, if somebody shared this with you, share it with someone else. Be an ally, not an obstacle. Justice is a process that is broken by systemic racism. This isn't, it shouldn't be about politics or who you vote for. This should be about a round world where the arc of justice, of the arc of humanity is long, but it bends towards justice. This is about shattering the glass that is holding in the voices of people who need to be heard, and then taking what is written by people who need those voices to be heard and those stories to be shared, and repeating them, sharing them, because 74 days is a crime. 74 days before an arrest. And you know why it happened? Do you know why the arrest happened after 74 days? It's because social media broke the system. They broke the glass. Time ran out. Because a video that an idiot racist in Georgia shared to clear his buddies went viral, and people watching it shared it. Time's up. Restart the clock for social justice. I hope you'll share this. The story that you just heard is on Vocal Media. The link will be in the comments. Every time that link gets shared and anytime anybody tips on that story, the money will go to the fund to help Ahmaud's family. Thank you.